Schools will not reopen until the fall in this province because they're not safe. But it may be safe to start reopening the economy sooner than expected. That's the mixed messaging from the Ford government tonight.
I will not take unnecessary risks with our children right now.
In the latest modeling, the Science Advisory Table said there could be a 6 to 11% increase in cases if schools reopened in June, but concluded the risk could be manageable. Keeping schools closed makes it possible to open the economy sooner. Health experts have stated if schools reopen, the province should wait 2 or 3 weeks before starting phase 1, which would see patios and non-essential stores open with conditions. The government has been targeting that for June 14th, 12 days from now. But with falling cases and schools staying closed, it could be even sooner.
And I'm so hopeful that as things are going, we may be able to enter step 1 safely earlier than June the 14th.
Are you choosing the economy over schools, though?
No, not at all, Cynthia. What I'm choosing is avoiding 2 million kids going indoors for 8 hours a day for a 2-week or 3-week period.
The Premier insists schools have been safe, but says the variant first identified in India, the B1617, recently dubbed Delta by the World Health Organization, is spreading in Ontario and poses a bigger threat, even though his Chief Medical Officer of Health says he's been pushing for schools to open.
The problem is that the Premier's talking out of both sides of his mouth. On the one hand, he says that there's no spread in schools and schools are safe because he doesn't want to invest in making them safe. And on the other hand, he's saying there's going to be spread in schools if we get kids back in the classroom. And those things just don't jive. Ontario is the only province in Canada where kids are still not back in school, where our schools are still closed. And that's on Doug Ford. He didn't want to spend the money on smaller classes, on ventilation.
But the Premier promises the government will be spending more this summer.
We'll use this time to continue investing in ventilation in our schools.
Which begs the question, 15 months into the pandemic, why aren't the schools already properly ventilated? The Liberal leader, who has risen in the polls while Ford has dropped, is accusing the Premier of playing politics.
Today, we are exactly 1 year away from the next provincial election. This entire play by Doug Ford and his team, his campaign team, over the last month or so has been all about next year's election campaign. It's not about what's good for my kids or your kids. It's been all about what's good for Doug Ford and his electoral chances.
The Premier is offering all students in every grade an in-person graduation ceremony as a kind of consolation. He says it was inspired by a student named Arthur who wrote him a letter, and despite the stay-at-home order still technically being in effect last night, Doug Ford went to see him in person. This last-minute idea is putting school boards in a frenzy. They'll have to figure out how to hold outdoor ceremonies safely in a very small amount of time.